Episode 35 of the Precious Metal Gents podcast. I'm Zan here with Brian, and we are back with another episode about one of ones. And we're going to do something a little bit different. It's not going to necessarily be a particular one of one from a set, Brian. We're going to talk a little bit about some like odds and ends, essential credentials, some other stuff. And you've got some good info on that stuff, yeah?
Yeah. We're trying to, mix in some sets that maybe don't get a lot of airtime. I mean, essential credentials do, but the Donruss elite or the Donruss elite status and the aspiration stuff and some of the other just kind of oddities of 101s and how these brands come about making
Yeah.
101s in creative ways.
And we'll get into more about kind of what we were looking for off the beaten path one of ones in some sense. But we'll save that for the main segment. First of all, we have our Super Bowl matchup set. I was 0 for 2 on my conference picks. Pretty bad. You were 1-1. Now we've got Eagles Chiefs, a rematch of 2 years ago where they gave us a pretty good game, 38-35 in favor of the Chiefs. So what did you make of the conference results? Any early thoughts on Super Bowl?
I guess I really wasn't surprised with any of the results. I picked Washington more, like I even said, with my heart. Common sense would tell you that Philly is a better team if they're playing up to par, and they showed us that. We were just talking about last week that the passing game didn't really show up yet, and then you saw the passing game. So they look like the full team now, the real deal. I can't really pick against Patrick Mahomes. He's just too good in the clutch, too good in playoffs, Super Bowls. So they're going to find a way. I think I've said since the beginning of the year. I said it last episode. I'll keep on them. It sucks for Bills. I mean, it seems like we can talk about the refs. I mean, everybody's seen the ref stuff, and it seems like Kansas City is like 14-0 in one score games or something. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy into like the NFL is not like just some elaborate scheme where they're like cheating for them, but it really is odd. They get like every call. I don't know if it's just like one of those protective things, like they're the Chiefs and it's Mahomes, and I don't know what it is. It's not like there's this elaborate scheme though. So it just sucks for the
Yeah.
Bills. Bad luck. I mean,
Yeah. I hate to see it. I mean, I don't have any invested interest or anything in Josh Allen, but it does kind of suck to see him consistently losing. I like parity. I say that even as a Pats fan for a long time, obviously, but now parity because we suck, so parity is more enjoyable. But yeah, I'll have to figure out who I think will win. I'll make that pick next week. But yeah, like you, I wanted the Commanders to win and just kind of picked that out of the hope that they would, I don't know, string together some big plays, but they just ended up kind of shitting the bed and making too many turnovers, too many boneheaded plays. So, we'll be back next week and we'll give you our Super Bowl pick then. Brian, you threw up a poll. What was that about? I didn't. I don't know if I think I voted, but tell us a little bit about that poll you threw up.
it was in a response to a few comments that I got, DMs from our last episode where I had one in particular where I was talking. Apparently, I was talking about Panini being,
Mm.
I don't know, better than Tops, and then a couple other ones where I mentioned some stuff about vintage and that, but mainly the modern stuff. I was in a couple discussions with people about current or modern cards and 2000s till now. So I just thought I'd throw a poll up there and just see what people thought. And the results kind of surprised me, honestly. It was 46% Tops Bowman. So the question was which has had the best card designs from 2000 to 2025. So till now. Tops Bowman had 46% of the vote. Panini had 30%. Leaf had 6%, and Upper Deck had 18%. Now remember,
Mm.
Upper Deck includes like the exquisite ultimate collection, that sort of thing. So yeah, obviously if you're like a basketball collector specifically, I mean, those are some big products in there too. So I can understand that. I guess I was kind of shocked with the Tops Bowman. I thought it would be closer to Panini. I mean, it's 16% off, but like there was just, to me, there's just so many dud designs over the past like 25 years for Topps and Bowman. There's some really good designs. Some of my favorite designs are Topps Bowman stuff, but like compared to just some of the things that we see in all the Panini era, like you include the early flawless stuff, the Prism Optic. I mean, there's a ton of other brands too. I mean, if you like NT and all that stuff, it's just, and some of the obscure stuff too. This stuff doesn't even get talked about, like the 2014 totally certified mirrors. Like
Yeah.
those designs might be some of the coolest looking cards ever made.
Hmm.
I think Panini in general, to me, I guess the reason why I said this last week was I feel like Panini does a good job of like mixing in a lot of the what worked well in the 90s, like the aesthetic and designs of the 90s, like with the totally certified stuff with that foil overlay. You don't see Topps doing stuff like that. So I guess it's just kind of, there's a lot of bland designs. And I didn't think that many people would like the Topps Bowman product over Panini. So
So I wonder if it would. My thought was, I wonder if it would change because, in a way, Panini's only been around for like 15 years, 14 years. Versus you get Topps kind of gets that extra 11 and had the license for all three sports for those 11 years. And so Panini obviously has never had the baseball license. So I wonder if it would be different if we said 2012 to 2025. Do you think Topps Bowman or Panini? I'd be interested to see, because then you're just basically comparing licensed licensed products in the same amount of years in a way.
if I did that, like if you did 2012 to 2025, I'd really love an explanation why anybody would even come close to picking Topps Bowman. Then I think
Yeah,
the only reason why Topps Bowman gets credit, and I even like the stuff, is the early 2000s. Like you got the early superfractors and stuff like that. Like that was really good. But like now, if you compared to the end of Topps for football and basketball, and then into like what they do
yeah,
now, it's just
right.
ugh.
I agree.
So
Yeah, I agree. Um, I'm almost done with my Grail funding. I'm at like 98 point something percent. I should hopefully have it done by next week. I'm trying to sell a few more cards. And then Brian and I are going to have another special guest on, and he and I are going to kind of discuss maybe why we bought these cards and sort of the rationale behind it. So stay tuned for that. Things are finally coming to a close. I'm going on, I think February 12th will be 3 months. So, yeah, I should have it before that 90-day window that I had closes. So stay tuned for that. I don't have that to share in a mail day today, but I posted on my Instagram two Panini Phoenix Phoenician inserts, which are kind of a under the radar insert. I said there's 8 Optichrome products. Phoenix is probably the least popular. I like it. It's a cheap product, but it was a fun product to open when it was cheap. And some of the designs are kind of cool. They have good insert designs. The Phoenicians are some of my favorite. You can check them out on my page. They've been around since 2020. Each year, unlike maybe like a Kaboom or Downtown, is very visually distinct from the prior year. There, you would never look at two side by side and say, I can't really tell the difference. They're all very different. They have the holofoil design or the holographic design or the prism effect, I guess if you want to say. A lot of different colors. They've got sort of this, this, I guess, Phoenix Egyptian theme that with these like almost like hieroglyphs on the side of the card. It's just a cool design to them. I've got the Jefferson and the Chase up on my page if you want to take a look at those. Also, I forgot to mention last week, 2020 Prism Gold of CD Lamb. That's his rookie. I got that on auction. I would say that's one of the two bigger sort of modern wide receiver cards I've gotten. I love that year. I love that design. You and I have talked about 2020 and how much we enjoy that. So I was really happy to land that. For maybe 35% of the cost of the Justin Jefferson from that year. So I thought, okay, that's a pretty good deal. I don't really want to pay what Jefferson goes for right now anyway. So yeah, happy with that. What'd you pick up?
but the I just got in the mail the actually today 2024 Prism Gold Josh Jacobs. It's still in the
That's
mail.
nice. What do you think of those? I have gotten three 2024 golds. What do you think of them so far? You like it?
Yeah, they look a lot. They're similar to the 2013.
Yeah,
They use a lot of the same kind of patterns. I guess with the thing that would draw you to the 2013 is that angled side
right.
border. It's not
Same.
as shiny as
Yeah,
the 2013.
right.
The
It's not.
gold looks a little bit more muted than the 2013. The gold is kind of like a mix between some of the duller years and the brighter years. It's a good card. Like I
Yeah.
think I love the design. It's one of my it's in the top half of my favorites for Prism. I like how they have the logo at the bottom. There's a lot of years I don't think where they have the logo at the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. Pat Nicholson said there's only 2 years where they do. And
Okay.
so this is only the second year where they've had, maybe 12 is the other one, 12 or
They have
13. So,
really good photography with this. I feel like they did a really good thing by they brought the player forward, kind of like how the 2014 is, like closer but not that close. They
yeah.
just kind of did everything right. They took some of like pieces of like some of the better designs in Prism. You can see what Prism's doing now is they're trying to like they're trying to finish up where they kind of give a like a nod to like all their years. I feel like with these last couple of years, they're trying to mix. And I'm curious to see what the final year next year for football is going to look like. I'm pretty excited for that. So
Yeah.
it'll be nice to put a capstone on football for Prism. It's kind of sad to me that it's going, but I would rather have that than have them drag on. So this is the
Yeah.
first Packers card of Jacobs, one of two Prisms that he's going to have in a Packers uniform. So it's a really cool card. I'm happy to get that.
That's nice.
A friend has the Finite, and I think the Nebula is on eBay now. He'll probably get that too. So I probably won't ever get those. So this is the best I'm going to get for that card. So that's cool. The next one is a 2021 Optic Gold Vinyl 101 of Devonte Adams. It was recently. There it is, right there.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. Good year.
He's got four Optic Gold vinyls in Packers uniform. This one was recently featured on a crossover because Josh had it, and then in a roundabout deal trading type situation, it ended up with me. Um, so it wasn't like he just like bought it and flipped it or anything. It's just that it's moved around to. I think he talked on like 2 weeks ago or maybe it was last week about how if you're gonna like when you move a card, like you move stuff with collectors, and he likes to
Mm-hmm.
get stuff that he knows he can use as trade bait, like we all do, and then he can get cards that he wants, and just move them to collectors. So that's how that was. It wasn't like he got it in a deal and like flipped it to me or anything like that. So I'm happy to have that. I'm gonna try to get the Optic Gold Run. It's manageable. There's four of them. Um, yeah, so I know where a couple other ones are, so I'm working on those. The next one I have, ironically enough, is one of my favorite Tops designs. So for all the people out there that think I hate Tops, I don't. I love this card. I love this set. It's the 2011 Tops Platinum 101 of Tremont Williams. If you don't know what Tremont Williams is, he was one of the best cornerbacks in Packers history. I don't have his stats right in front of me, but I believe he had. I'm going to butcher this. I shouldn't. I should have looked this up. But I think he had three big interceptions in the 2010 playoff run for the Packers. He led the playoffs in interceptions from that year.
You're correct.
It was three. Did he
Yeah,
have
and he had a
he had a touchdown
touchdown.
too? Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Two fumble recoveries,
Yeah. He
four
was
passes defended. Yeah.
he was a monster. You look at his passes defensed in his career. You look at his interceptions of 34 total, 32 of them on or 30 of them on Green Bay, and then multiple playoff interceptions. He was just a force. He'll be in the Packers Hall of Fame. He's not yet. Pretty confident he will be in there. I think he's somewhere in the top 10 interception list for the team. So just a really underrated cornerback. He was the Packers' number one cornerback for a number of years. Uh, Brings back a lot of memories. He doesn't have a lot of cards. So the reason why,
Yeah.
if you're wondering like why did you get a Tops, why didn't you get the Chrome? He's not in any Chrome products. He's got two 101s. It's this one, this platinum, and then the next year, 2012 platinum, which has the, if you're familiar with those, has like the foil effect
Mm-hmm.
design. It's kind of cool. This one has like a hollow foil. You can't really see it. Hollow foil on the name, and then it's got like a kind of a sparkly blue border. So, but it's a really cool photo. It's a cool card. It's
Yeah, I
part
like those.
it's part of the one card player PC for the Packers I'm doing. So really everybody before the Panini era essentially is getting like one big card in my PC. The the Packers greats. And
Yeah.
then if they kind of overlap, like Jennings, I'll probably still get his Prism and then another card or something, maybe a Superfractor, something like that.
I forgot how good that 2010 Green Bay secondary, Tremont Williams, Charles Woodson, Sam Shields, and Nick Collins. Oh, Jared Bush is like your fourth corner. That's a really good defensive backfield there.
Yeah, and Jared Bush pissed me off. He sucked, but
Yeah, yeah.
he came up with a big play in the Super Bowl to Clint to basically shut down. I think in the last play he had the pass defense. It was a I remember it was like a cross middle. He batted it down into the game. So I think that was him. I believe, but yeah, he was our worst player. But I shouldn't say he sucked. I mean, I just
As a
he
fourth
had
corner, you'll
he
take
had a
him.
lot of
Yeah.
bad plays. But yeah,
Yeah.
they were stacked for sure.
Card of the week. We'll go from Packers to Lions here. Fanatics Collect Weekly this past week. 1996 Select Certified Barry Sanders Premium Stock Mirror Red PSA 9 sold for $10,200, which is an all-time high for it's an all-time high for a PSA 9. It's the second highest selling Sanders Premium Stock Mirror Red ever. Actually, it's the second highest selling Premium Stock Mirror Red, generally speaking, ever. The only one that was higher was the lone PSA 10 of the same card, sold in November of this past year for almost $18,000. There is only one 10, only one 8, and then there's 5 9s. So you've only got 7 of these Barry Sanders PSMRs graded by PSA. I was looking at it. I mean, those are really nice cards. Obviously, unnumbered print run of 20. There's several of them that did really well. Eddie George, John Elway, both did pretty well in this past auction. But I was interesting. I think ask you this because obviously you're a UF guy and you love Emmett. I mean, Emmett's cards, like you can get his cards for about 25% the cost of Sanders. Like his 97 rubies you get for maybe 10 grand versus like 40,000 of Barry. I couldn't find a sale for a Smith PSMR. There didn't seem to be any in the recent past. But two questions. First, what do you make of the Barry Sanders sale? Do you think his market is something do you think it's going to come down at all? Do you think he's got enough collectors that, they can sort of support this type of sale? And then second question is Emmett a good pivot if you're looking to collect a Hall of Fame running back, but maybe Sanders is out of your price range?
You're trying to bait me into saying something like
I
anti
am.
Sanders and pro
So that
Emmett
we can get a good listener question indicting you next week.
because you already know what I think of Emmett.
Yeah.
Well, Barry Sanders is always going to get like okay. So I'll start with this. Barry Sanders is always going to get like the majority of people that are collecting with like for the highlight reel. Um, obviously he's a great player. He's one of the best wherever you want to put him. He's top 3 all time, but Barry Sanders is always going to have a strong collector base because of how good he was for such a shorter career, and then all of the highlight reel plays, and anybody looking back at him is just you can pull up any Barry Sanders highlight and he's great. So he's got that nostalgia and that connection. Emmitt Smith wasn't as flashy, but he was he is a good pivot to answer your question. He's one of the best as well. He's top 3 all time wherever anybody wants to put those 3. To me, it's like it's Walter Payton, Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith. So you can put them anywhere you want. Some people would throw Jim Brown in there, but I
Yeah.
don't. So yeah, I mean, if you're getting a guy like Emmett Smith, if you could just pull up his numbers, like just put their numbers side by side. I know one played longer, but like put like the peak 3 years next to each other, and I think you're pretty identical, right? Like you're not. It's nothing crazy. I don't
Hmm.
remember offhand. I think they both have. Barry has one shared MVP with Brett, and then Emmett's got one, or does he have two?
I think he has one.
Yeah, and they got all pro, a number of all pros. They got to be pretty close.
Hmm.
I think Barry has more all pros, maybe.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
But I mean, the peak years are the same essentially. One was like a
Yeah.
key cog in a Super Bowl dynasty. Some would say that it was, it's like a chicken. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it the offensive
Hmm.
line and Troy Aikman, or was it Emmett Smith
Right.
saving them? I mean, you can look at it a
Right.
number of ways. You can make the argument. So Barry Sanders is always just going to be more. I think to be like 4x what Emmett Smith gets,
Yeah, it's too much.
that's that right there is kind of more on hype than it is on like if you're looking at quality of player. The cards are like we're talking about the same cards. It's not like we're talking about like different eras of cards or
Hmm.
different like it's not like we're comparing like a modern or like 90s cards to like vintage or something. These are like the exact same eras, same cards. That's driven by hype. And then if you compare Barry to like like even now the quarterbacks, right, are like the more expensive buys. But what did the Elway go for?
20. No, it's like just over 3,000, I think.
Yeah, and then what other quarterbacks sold?
I
What did
don't
the
know. I
Favre
know
go?
Eddie George went for what? Eddie George was really high. He was at 1980 or 19, right around just under 2,000. The last Favre was one that sold in May for 1,500. I
Jeez.
think when I sold mine, maybe it was less than 2,000. So, and that was maybe 6 months ago. So, yeah, I mean, it's certainly on the way up. Now, the Elway that sold, that was for 2640. That was a PSA 10 that had actually just sold back in November for 3,200 and went for 2,600 this time around. It's a pop 3 card, same copy. Um, but yeah, I mean, you're talking third Elway at 25% of the Barry
That's
on a
crazy.
PSA 10. Yeah,
I mean, Elway to me, we can go on a whole other
right.
tangent on Elway. I don't think I think he was overrated, but we're not people like card prices don't relate to like how good the player is.
Yeah.
It's the collector base, and Barry has an extremely strong collector base. Great player. They're all
Hmm.
Hall of Famers. It's just that the amount higher than he is compared to other players is astounding to me. Like when Brett Favre sells for like under $2,000 in that set and was the best player in that era, it's crazy. Because then you compare
Hmm.
like the people buying this stuff. These are still probably semi-modern collectors too. I mean, you look at what quarterback prices do now compared to
Yeah,
position
it is
players.
strange.
It's weird.
Yeah, because that like you look at Sanders and Rice and Moss, right? Like those three guys. I mean, they're towards the top of the pyramid in terms of sales, but Sanders and Rice in particular, and so it makes you wonder how some of these current quarterbacks will be regarded in retrospect. Because I'm with you, I think Elway is probably maybe a little bit overrated, but at the end of the day, you know, MVP winning quarterback, won two Super Bowls in the Hall of Fame, and not a lot of quarterbacks that are currently playing will be able to say that at the end of their career. And so it'll be interesting to see how some of these guys kind of fade or don't fade. All right, listener questions. We've got a few to go through before the 101 segment. First one, Cardboard Insights. This will be helpful if you are listening to watch the YouTube video. Cardboard Insights says, I have seen several doctored cards recently being sold on eBay, essentially real base cards, altered to look like rare parallels that don't exist anywhere. This obviously isn't good and perhaps speaks volumes of authenticity services. I guess this is more of a comment, but would be curious just to hear a discussion. I'll also attach some eBay listings I have seen. And so I think you have a few of the eBay listings up here on your screen. And he did a good job of kind of explaining briefly why some of these were not real, or parallels that didn't exist.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of discuss this a little bit. So I asked him to kind of give an explanation on each one of these because he sent me screenshots of all three that he referenced that were fakes on eBay, or really just they were like they're created cards. They're not like altered. They're literally just made up cards to look like they're actually something. I said I wasn't too familiar with some of these, so he sent me a few of them, two Jordans and one Carmelo Anthony. The first one I have pictured here. If you're looking on YouTube, and if you're listening, I'll try to explain it the best I can. The first one, I mean, it looks like a real card out of 100. It's an Upper Deck Gold Reserve, and it says it's number 1 out of 100. Um, the point is, though, with this is that this is from the Upper Deck Gold Reserve set, and there was no numbered parallels in that set. The flagship Upper Deck set that looks similar to this, it did have parallels. It had one that was out of 100, and it had 101, and it was actually numbered right here in the same place where this one is. If you're looking at this image on our YouTube screen, so they basically added a serial number to a card that wasn't to have a serial number, and it probably would make it a pretty pricey card. I'm guessing in upwards of, generally Jordans like this go for like what, $500-600.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cool looking card. It's got like a gold finish to it, so someone flipping through eBay would see this and think it's something. So that's the first one. Second one he sent me, I'm gonna skip this one. I'm gonna go back up to here, the Carmelo Anthony. This one's kind of comical to me. So this one right away, I mean, if you're just looking at the back here, you can tell it's a fake card. It's a die cut. It looks like someone used those scissors that have the designs in them to cut the die cuts. I've seen other 101s like this where they've tried, but if you look at the serial number, it's just kind of
Crude.
yeah, it's ridiculous, crude to say the least. So
right,
but they're trying to sell it for 60 Canadian, 43 us. So
I see.
so yeah, and this is the crazy thing. It's Elite Sports Cards and Superstore, 13,000 sales, 99.5%. So clearly this guy doesn't care. He doesn't know. But I mean, it's from like a legit seller. So that's kind of scary as well. It's just a completely phony made up card. The toughest one to decipher, unless you really know the set, would be this next one here. This is the, I guess it would be, I'm going to try to zoom in on it better. So this one comes from the Upper Deck profiles, or the SP Authentic profiles. And if you're familiar with that set at all, there's 3 profiles. There's profile 1, it's a silver foil. Then there's a profiles 2, which is gold foil. And then there's profile 3, which is die cut, like this one I'm showing. And it's hand numbered out of 100. So I asked him, because a lot of times when you see the hand numbering, you think, well, that's the replacement copy or the backdoor copy, right? But from what he told me, all of the ones in that set are hand numbered, and they're actually numbered down at the bottom, where this numbering is this 101. But they were all numbered out of 100. There was no 101 in that set, so the numbering is wrong there. And profiles 2 sells for $500 or so. So making this, this guy's trying to sell it for $3,000. He's got 100% feedback, 11 sales, but 100% feedback. So, someone flipping through who likes Jordan, has money, I mean, they could buy something like this and get duped. So it is kind of scary. It's something to kind of keep a lookout for, some of the fake cards. If you don't know, if you see a card, you think it looks cool, it looks legit, just always double check it on Trading Card Database, or Baseballpedia if it's a baseball card, or send it to the many hobby participants on Instagram or any social media that you use to see if they've seen it before. You don't want to get screwed over. All right. So the next question we have is from Drake's PC, and Drake says, these are both of your opinions, and people can collect how and what they like. But when do you feel non-playing days cards matter? Is it if the parallel or set didn't exist during the player's playing days, or is it something else? Like, what are your guidelines for post-playing years? When do you think that they would make a difference or matter or be collectible? He's trying to get us in trouble again.
Yeah, I know. So full disclosure, neither Brian nor I collects post playing day cards, nor do we really care for them very much. Now, I will say there's a narrow set of exceptions that I would consider a post playing days card. One of those is we've talked about these particular cards, both the MJ 98 PMG and the Barry Sanders 99 PMG are technically post playing days cards. They went into production, I think, before their retirements were announced, but they were actually released after the players had retired. To me, that's sort of close enough in time for it to be, I guess, considered a collectible card. You're really getting into the weeds there about post playing days. The things that I typically the types of cards I'm typically not looking to buy are like 90s players in modern sets. I don't know that those things hold much significance. And again, significance is going to be relative. I think about Babe Ruth versus Gold Prism, and like people have tried to kind of upsell that, but it looks ridiculous because it's this modernized holographic card with a gold border of this black and white photograph. And you just might say in your head, "Oh, that sounds kind of cool," but it doesn't look great, and it has no historical value. I think a big part of the reason why we collect the playing days cards is because um, when you look at the card, you're like, okay, this card was released at a point in time where this player was at his peak, or this player was maybe not even at his peak, but he was in the final years of a Hall of Fame career, even if he wasn't performing at his best. And so there's a direct link with, the time frame of the release and the memories of the player versus like seeing like a black finite of Teddy Bruschi. To me, it's just sort of like I liked watching Bruschi. He was a big part of several Super Bowls, but like, what is it? To me, it sort of jumps out just sort of as a not as a cash grab necessarily, but as sort of like a uh, Panini Prism in particular. Panini with Prism in particular likes to just shove a bunch of retired players into the Prism sets, and um, I guess some people might find that significant. I could see maybe a situation in which perhaps there was a guy you liked in the 90s or the early 2000s who just wasn't included in any of your favorite sets. And maybe you're like, okay, well, he's got this one black prism. Maybe that's technically his best card, even though it's a post playing days card. Um, I guess that could be a certain situation where someone might enjoy that. But for the most part, I would say that there's going to be limited significance in the long haul because, I mean, we're looking back already at the 90s. And aside from those two cards that I mentioned, I have trouble thinking of any big post playing days cards that stand out as, um, you know, desirable cards. So that's just my take on it. What do you think?
I think there's a couple. We had that episode where we were talking about, I think, Joe Montana and
Yeah,
how he's got like a limited card catalog and other than
right.
base cards. But there's a couple instances where I think I would really go after post playing years cards, and they would be certain ones. So one of them would be like if I was just a strictly a player collector, and I only collected like let's say one player mainly. I would try to buy up, and let's just say it's Montana. Okay, I'm a Montana collector, and that's all I collect. I get his entire base run, try to get high grade, do whatever with that, get all of his cards. I try to collect every one of his cards if I was a super collector of him. And I would buy um mainly I would like the uniform like the jersey patch, the game worn patch cards, especially if I was like a player collector of like older players. So I can't remember the account that I follow, but there's an account, a vintage collector primarily, but he gets a lot of like patch cards of base like old baseball players. So like Babe Ruth patches and like cut autos of Ty Cobb and things like that. Like I think some of that stuff's kind of cool. Like it's kind of like historic when you get like game used patches of like, players from the 70s, 50s, whatever, 40s and before. I think that stuff's kind of cool. So like if I was a vintage collector too, like strictly vintage, I think I would dabble into some of the modern like patch stuff that would get like game used things or some of the autos and things like that. So I think I would do that. Those would be the only two scenarios why I would collect post playing days. Like let's just say I was collecting Favre, I'd want like a lot of his flawless game used stuff. I think
Mm-hmm.
that would be cool. I'd probably end up getting some of his prisms, whatever, um, but that would be it. I couldn't do it with the way I collect now. It would make no sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see why it would appeal to a specific type of collector. And so again, we're not the arbiters of what's right and wrong in the collecting world, but collect what you like. I think that's at the end of the day. If you do that, you're not going to be able to go wrong. But if you're seeking out maybe significant cards or what maybe the hobby deems significant cards, it might be harder to do that with post playing day cards. Maze Sports asks, I recently had a flurry of cards pop up for a player PC all within a week of one another. Been there. The card I wanted the most was at auction and sold for far more than I was willing to pay. So I pivoted to a couple of the other cards that had popped up. That card never got paid for and then popped up a couple days later and ended at auction for half of what it initially ended at. I would have definitely paid that price and even a bit more, but was unable to because I had already committed to the other two cards. Has a similar experience happened to either of you where multiple cards on your want list suddenly popped up at once, but you couldn't grab them all?
I've literally had it where I bought like,
You had like a month ago. I feel like it's like
well, I mean, I've
2 months
had
ago.
where there's been so many scenarios. I've had one where I bought one parallel of the card to kind of like fill the void, and then the 101 that I wanted popped up literally the same day, and I like I didn't even have the card, and I messaged the person that I know would want it. Like, do you want the underbid price in this card? I'm going to lose money, but I'm getting the 101. They're like, sure. So I mean, I've been there. Basically, what I would say is just the way that I do it is just I go after the rare stuff. So I don't really care if I bought the cards I need to get. If this was like a super rare card, I'd even just sell the ones I just bought. I wouldn't try to flip them. I mean, if somebody wants to give me more money than I paid, sure, but like I'm not going to try to sell it for more than what I just paid for it. But then I'd try to get the rarest one.
I think this is actually a good example of where a funding service could help you
Yeah.
out. If you can get Mark at Fund Your Cards or Nick with the Wharf sports cards to bid on the item for you, it enables you to pay in the future. So, in Maze's example, he keeps the two cards that he got. He commissions one of them to go win the auction. They win the auction at half the price. And then with their fee or whatever it is, it's still less than he would have paid. And he has, 45 days to save up cash or decide what cards to part with. So I think if I'm in that situation, funding is a really good option. Like if you can't afford them all, let's say it's like your top three cards all come up at once. And that has happened. Like it happened to me early in 2024 where a bunch of like the Pedros came up, Favre Super Rave, um, and I had to really do some massive reshuffling. So it's definitely an option to use the funding service, or as Brian said, just if it's like you buy two cards, they're out of 25, but the out of 10 comes up, just sell those 25s and get them back later.
Yep. The next one is also from Maze Sports, and he says, I'd also love to hear two positive things and one downside or barrier, if any, that Zan has discovered in his recent endeavor to collect ultramodern all-pro NFL wide receivers.
Okay. Two positive things. Well, one of them is definitely going to just be exploring new sets, but some sets that were previously known to me, like obviously like the Prisms optics and even products like Phoenix and Origins, like that I had delved into a bit back in, 5 years ago. Um, and so there's this, when you collect 90s, and I was pretty much 90s exclusive, like you're not turned off. You're not actively engaged in exploring new sets. And so kind of opening that up and allowing myself to um, buy stuff beyond this sort of narrow scope of things that I wanted. Um, a second positive thing is it enables me to collect some players that I can still watch and connect with via watching them, or via my kids who like these players. They tend to really like Jefferson and St. Brown and Chase. And so it, there's that component, which is really cool. They don't know anything about Brett Favre. They don't know anything about Jeff Bagwell and Pedro Martinez. They've never seen him play. So that's probably the second best thing. The negative, the one downside barrier, I'll give you actually two. One is that, as with anybody who first gets into 90s cards, we both did it, and all these people I know that are coming into 90s cards do it, or really in any new era. You get really carried away really quickly, and you buy a lot really quickly, because it's like, oh wow, there's that huge dopamine hit of like, I was sort of stagnating in this era that I was collecting. Now I'm moving to this new one, and okay, buy, 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 buy. And then the second thing is, along those similar lines, is there's a lot of choices, and you have to be, that can be good and bad, but there's sort of like that paradox of choice, which is there are so many gold parallels of so many cards, and you really have to, it's really easy to be like, oh, that's a great value, that's a great deal, 100 here, 200 there, 300 there. That adds up really quickly. So you really have to be a bit discerning about what you're going to go with. Like if you're going to go with particular sets, stick with those, and maybe like fill in with like the Phoenician inserts. Those are $50 or $60. You can kind of add those in here and there, but be careful in terms of being like, oh, because it's numbered to 10, it's a must-have card. There's just too many cards that are numbered to 10 out there, and unless that you could drive yourself crazy with trying to get them all. So I would say that's 2 and 2 there. Hopefully that answered your question, Maze. Next one's from notable Rockies collector, Scotty B. Cards, owner of the Larry Walker Gem Masters. What is the best way to track down rare cards of players that you PC?
The best luck that I've had was through like collector groups on Instagram,
Yeah.
without a doubt. And I mean, you can always have your saved searches and stuff pops up, but I've had I have a lot of saved searches, and I have a lot of stuff. I look on eBay all the time, and I get more things sent to me by other collectors off of eBay and other platforms than I could ever like find myself. So you miss
Yeah.
stuff. There's no way you can see everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. It's not only the connections that you make in buying and selling from people on Instagram. It's the fact that you know them and that they'll send you things that are publicly available. So it may be buying rare cards off of eBay, but the best way to track them down is just knowing people and engaging with people via Instagram or via whatever platform, Facebook, that you tend to use the most. I've found that a lot of it is you make these connections. A lot of it's luck. I mean, things just kind of fall into your lap sometimes, and you could search high and low for stuff, and you may never find it. But then one day it may just kind of pop up. Like we talked about I think the perfect example is that Favre 98 now. We spent a whole episode doing the pyramid, talking about how nobody'd seen that card, and then it pops up like right after. And so you just never know. No matter what something's numbered to, it could be a 101. It may come up. So stay plugged in, stay hunting, Keep your save searches going. I check your auctions weekly. I check alt. I check Fanatics Collect. I check Golden pretty much every week just to see what's ending on weekly premieres, elites, that kind of stuff. I don't not great about checking heritage, but make sure you're just my slabs, due diligence on all these different platforms, and eventually you'll come across something that you need.
Well, here's an example right here. This card, this Adams. So this was got
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
in a deal. Josh got it with, I think, the finite that Travis posted, big face cards, and then in another deal, because we're in like a group chat on Instagram, was moved it for traded. I'm not going to get into specifics of his deal. Got cards that he wanted for his PC. This moved to Travis. I got this from Travis, big face cards, because he knew that I wanted it. So then he recouped some of the money that he traded away in card value, if that makes sense. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just by knowing those people, I got this card. I'm like 3 people removed from the original owner of this card. And it ended up with me in a course of like a couple months just because of trades and everybody trying to secure cards that they wanted for their PC just by communicating with people. So that's the best
Mm-hmm.
resource. I would have never had a chance at this card otherwise.
Yeah, it's a great. You got to stay plugged in. You got to stay connected with people, telling people what you want. Don't be afraid to post. I'm looking for X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I know things come across people's radar like that. We got one more question, Brian. Some cardboard insights. What's he want to know?
What portion of hobby funds should be sent or should be spent on Eric Michael Jankowitz advice versus cards? If you're not familiar with Eric Michael, I think we mentioned him in the show last week.
We
Right?
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
he had a cameo appearance. And if anyone wants to know what he does, he helps busy professionals earn a side income using their passion for sports cards. His side hustle is that he buys and sells sports cards. But he is a sports card business coach, so that's my favorite type of coach personally. One I've been looking for. So my answer to this is I'd go 100% on EM advice because if you follow his rules and you start with whatever his multi-level marketing package costs, and then you invest XYZ, your returns are gonna be astronomical, and so then you'll have a lot more money for cards. So I think you just start buying his how-to guide,
Yep.
and then once you're rich, then you start buying cards that you actually like.
Invest in yourself first. Invest in the process with Eric Michael Jankowitz
Mm-hmm.
first, and then
Mm-hmm.
you'll have an unlimited amount of money to buy any card. He suggests if you start with buying $50 cards, you can grade them and get PSA 10s about 70% of the time, I believe he says. And then you
Mm-hmm.
can flip those for about $100, profiting about 20 some dollars or so after grading fees for each card. So that right there is just a
Yeah.
perfect business model. Just buy all the $50 cards, grade them at tens, flip them for $100, and you're going to be rich beyond your wildest dreams. So,
His website, if anyone's interested, is majorleagueprofits.com. If you're looking for a really like a new homepage or something like that, he has 300 plus reviews on Trustpilot, according to him.
look at some of his
And his
followers too. He's got some great followers. He's
he's
got like
got so many
50,000.
he's got so many female followers in Russia. It's crazy. He just
Yeah,
must really have a mass appeal there.
they collect a
Uh,
lot of cards over in Russia, I think.
they do a lot of them. All
While they're
right,
not
let's move.
while they're not like digging around for food and trying to support
Yeah,
themselves,
yeah.
or they're
They're
buying
watching
sales.
they're watching Eric Michael videos, actually,
Yeah.
is what they're doing. All right, let's move into our main segment. Brian's got the PowerPoint here. So what we did is to further explain this is obviously we looked at the essential credentials sets, but we only looked at the one of ones. And so as this is a one of one segment, we focused on those. And then we looked at, what were some cards from the late 90s and early 2000s that were one of ones almost by happenstance. And what I mean by that is they were not one of ones because every other card in the set was one of ones. It was usually in sets where all the cards were maybe numbered to different serial numbers. Obviously, we see this a lot with mostly in Donruss Elite and the status and aspirations, which utilize sort of the quote unquote jersey formula to determine the one of one. But there are a few other ones. Fleer Focus had a couple. Upper Deck Black Diamond had one. But we'll get into those. So Brian, why don't you start us off with your PowerPoint here?
All right, so the first set that we're going to start with is 1997-98 Essential Credentials basketball. If you're not familiar with Essential Credentials, what they tend to do for majority of their sets, regardless of the sport, is they have two separate parallels. They have that are Essential Credentials. They have a now and a future. One of them counts from 1 to, let's say in this case, 80, and each card number relates to the serial number on the card, and then they do it in the reverse order for the other set. So that's generally the now is the 1 through 80, and the first card in the set, like this one that's featured here, the Grant Hill Essential Credentials now is number 1 in the set, so it's a 101. The second card in that set, the Essential Credentials now set, is Kevin Garnett, so he's out of 2, and then so on and so forth, up to 80 cards in that set. So card number 80 is out of 80. And then the future set, which is the pinkish purple card, the Ron Mercer, that's the 101. That would be then card number 80. So it's in reverse order. He's actually he's a 101 in the future set, but he's out of 80 in the now set. So the color, the color and the design, the styles for all of the 97 or all the 98 year Essential Credentials look the same for football, baseball, and basketball. If you're not familiar with it, this is a 98 set. It's a 97-98 basketball set. So these are both of the 101s, the Grant Hill now and the Mercer 101.
The easy way to remember the now is for any EC set, there was sequential serialization. Whatever the now card number in the set is, that's its serial number. So Grant Hill's card number 1, he's the 101. Ron Mercer's card 80, he's the 80 out of 80. Here we got him pictured both here. Grant Hill 101, owned by Spinatron, who has the entire set of now. I think he has this Ron Mercer as well. Ron Mercer actually had bounced around to several owners over the years, and I believe actually when it was pulled, was someone paid $15,000 for that card in a hobby shop. There was an article about it. I cannot remember where I saw it. It may have been on. I can't remember. If someone knows where that article is or has a memory of where that might have surfaced, let me know. But I believe that Ron Mercer was at some point a $15,000 card, which is pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, for sure. The 98 baseball set, it operates the exact same way, except there's 101 cards in this set. Baseball sets tend to be bigger anyway. So in the now set, which is not pictured here, I don't have a picture of it, but it's the green card. It's the Alex Rodriguez now 101. That's a huge card for Alex and really for any collector in the 90s. And the future set, which is one that's pictured here. I don't know who has this one, Zan, the Travis.
That's Brent. That's Brendan 90s wax there.
Okay.
PSA 8. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an awesome card. If you're not familiar with Travis Lee, he was a huge prospect in the 90s. I mean, you could say like he never panned out. I guess he technically didn't, but I don't think he could have met expectations. He was projected to be like the greatest baseball player of all time. So.
Yeah, he was on the cover of Beckett. He was on a lot of product boxes at the time. By the way, there's 100 cards in this. You put 101, but there's 100 cards in this set. But yeah, so this Travis Lee here, really cool looking card. Take a look at it. He's got the spring training gear on, but any one credentials is really just a pretty special card. If anyone has seen the A-Rod now, let us know. And if really for any of these, if we don't have the picture and you do, let us know.
Next one's the 98 Essential Credentials football set. We don't have any of the 101s pictured here. There's 61 cards only in that set. And it's the Cordell Stewart now. So the green Cordell Stewart and then the reddish purple Fred Taylor future. And that's a rookie card too for Fred Taylor. So that's a huge card. I don't know if that's ever even been came about.
Yeah, I know. PK. He's a big Jags collector. He said all the guys in his Jaguars chat, nobody knows of it. That doesn't mean that it's ever surfaced, but he knows a lot of Taylor and Jags collectors. So that one is a mystery to me. Cordell Stewart now, yeah, same deal. I tried to find it, tried to find a picture of it. The only thing I could find was just people saying that they would love to have it, on blowout. So who knows where these things might be hiding out?
Yeah, the ones we have pictured, I just threw up the one Drake has. I don't know if it's
The
not this
Woodson
exact one. He's got
or the
Drake's got
Manning and
the
the Woodson,
Manning
yeah.
out of 7, and then the Woodson out of 3, which is technically out of 2 from our episode with
Right.
Gino, because one of them I think is destroyed. But
Mm-hmm.
um, this set, this 98 set, it's got a ton of low numbered rookies. That's a great rookie class.
Yeah.
All right, so
98 here.
yeah, 98, 99 essential credentials basketball. It's 99 football, and it's 99 baseball. So I lumped all these together. These are the EX, they're the essential credentials EX Century sets. And I think, to me, these are like my favorite aesthetically. I love these cards. They're not as popular as the 98. Hobby kind of deemed the 98s as like the card to own of these central credentials. I like the way that these look, I think, the best. And what we have pictured here is the Antoine Edwards, former Packer cornerback. Never really panned out, another one of those players, but his rookie card in the future, the gold, which matches up really well with the Packers
Mm-hmm.
uniform, the 101. And then you got conversely, you got the Keyshawn Johnson and the now. The now is a silver pattern. And it's got like, I don't know, how would you describe, it's like a shimmer font,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
shimmer font.
Yeah, there's the shimmer effect within the font for sure, and then you've got I don't know what you would call the actual font itself, but it looks like something you could probably find on Microsoft Word. It's got the shadow backing of the name there. It's kind of on behind it, but I really like the Johnson. That's a nice color match. And what to your point, I think for 98 versus 99, it kind of depends on, if you're looking at aesthetics, kind of depends on the team color,
Yeah.
to decide like I'll take a Niners or a Packers future, but I may rather have like that Keyshawn in a now just because of the color there.
Oh yeah, we thought it's like with the Favre. So when I made my list of like the Favre cards I wanted, my Grail list, even though I was offered what's the Favre out of 13 the now
16,
16. I mean, that's like a really rare card, but I don't really like the way it looks with that silver background. I'd much rather have it
right?
in the gold, and he's like out of 75 or 79 or something.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
I mean, it's kind of like what you prefer, but these are really basically they relate to what the player's team color is, and I guess maybe that's where like it's so bold that maybe with some players with the 99s they don't look as good as with the 98s. There's more of an easier color trend or match with those. But for
Right.
baseball, you have the Scott Rowland now, which is 101. I don't know who Ryan Bradley is
There's
for
a
future.
Yankees pitcher, I believe.
Okay, and then you got Larry Hughes future for basketball, and you got the Keith Van Horn now, which would be kind of a cool card to see.
I'm surprised Van Horn was it's fun to see because like I think of the one of one now as being like the premier player, right? Because like the
Yeah,
now low number nows are all the top guys, right? So like the fact that they put Cordell one was kind of strange. Like Keith Van Horn number one is a little strange. It makes you wonder kind of how they decided on those versus like MJ or Kobe or any number of guys who were top players in the league.
yeah, I'm actually surprised that they didn't put with that 98 set, like that rookie class coming out was huge. I mean, like
Right.
put like Woodson or Manning or somebody as one. I mean, Keyshawn Johnson was huge and popular, I think, in like what, like 95 ish, like a couple
Mm-hmm.
years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But like by 98, I'd have to look and see the numbers, but I don't think he was as popular as a number one in a now set. But
Right.
whatever. Great cards though. Now we move. I kind of lumped into 2000. We only went up to 2004 with all the cards that we talked about. Again, it's a daunting task to go through and find all these 101s out of this type of checklist.
Right.
So it's because it's not an easy one-on-one search on trading card database. So if people know of other sets that do the similar concept, let us know. And if you want to hear about them, we can, throw them into an episode and talk about them a little bit. But I just went up to 2004. Essential Credentials only went up to that anyway. But some of the other sets too, I kind of cut it like with the Donruss stuff. I cut off at 2004. So lump these together. If you're not familiar with the central credentials of the early 2000s, take a look at the different years. They have really cool designs, underappreciated designs, I would say, for some. The biggest ones to remember, though, of those 101s, so of the cards that were numbered 101 due to the checklist, the main one would be probably the biggest essential. I guess you could say it's probably the biggest essential credentials is the LeBron James rookie 101. The interesting part of the 2000s is that with the 2003 set, they did something new where they basically took the entire checklist of 103 cards and they reduced it by one card. So if it's a now or a future, depending on what set it is, let's just say. So, for example, if it's LeBron's card, the future, the total number is 103. LeBron's card number is 102. So they took the card number and they subtracted it from the total number in the set, 103 minus 102, and you get one, meaning it's a 101. So they did like this math problem to figure out each card. So really everybody's card. And then if it's a now, like you see, Sharif Abdur-Rahim is the now 101. It's just the inverse. You take the 100 and the difference, the 102 minus the 103, and you get the 101. So I don't know if you had anything else to add on those. There was a number of, there's some cool basketball 2000s. You had a Richard Hamilton future in the 01-02 set. Sharif Abdur-Rahim has a couple 101s, and now he's in a
Yeah,
01 and 02.
that's really interesting. One thing I thought was just kind of running through these, we talked about, and this is not basketball related, but 98 baseball, we said Alex Rodriguez is the one of one now. He's also the one of one now in 2000 baseball and also in 02 baseball.
So he's got
He's
three.
got a jersey relic. Yeah, so he's got 3 credentials nows where he's the one of one, which is pretty impressive.
Brian Giles, 02 baseball.
Yeah, bat relic.
Yep. Yeah. So in 02, what they did was they threw in for cards up to 60, card numbers up to 60. They were really funky numbering in that. They had like 2 101s in each set. Or they had 101s, but they broke the set like in half. It was really strange.
It was weird. Yeah.
So they put jersey and bat relics on the cards out of up to 60. So A-Rod and Brian Giles both had patches or a bat relic. Another interesting one is you had a Kwame Brown in 01-02. Let's see. Stephon Marbury in 99-2000 basketball.
Yeah.
Marbury now.
Josh Beckett. We got a Josh Beckett future. He had a pretty nice run there with the World Series of the Marlins. 2000. Yeah. Yeah.
And then football skipped the numbers. So football didn't have any essential, or they were all numbered to 50 in 2000. And then there was no essential credentials in football from 02 to 03.
Exactly.
Which was strange.
They came back in 04 with Travis Henry as the one.
One that I'm really interested in finding, if anybody knows where it is the Ricky Week, the 2003 baseball Ricky Weeks Future 101 rookie card. There was a backdoor copy on eBay recently, and it's gone now. I was going to put it on this presentation, but it looks the same as the LeBron, obviously not LeBron, but baseball Ricky Weeks. It's kind of a bad picture. It's just a big picture of his head on there, but it's the same color. It's like that gold background. It's the same exact card. And it's his 101 rookie. It's his best card. If anybody knows where that is, I'd be interested in finding that. There's a D Wade now, a 2004-05 D Wade now, which is cool. There's a Vlad 04 baseball 101.
Yeah, MVP year.
Yep. Troy Gloss 101 now in this 2003 baseball set. So the other ones that we didn't mention are just kind of, I guess, no name common players. But those would be the best cards or the best players of the 2000s, 101s in the essential credentials set. Did you have anything else to add about the essential credentials 101 numbering?
Nah, it's a special type of one of one that I think is really neat to find. Like, it appeals to me even if I don't collect that particular player. I might still be interested in acquiring a one of one of credentials because I know that it's literally the only one of one, well, one of two one of ones in that entire product.
Yeah.
Versus like a Gem Masters card, which is fantastic, but there's 250 gym masters one
Yep.
of ones for so it's like the
Yeah.
product hit kind of.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because it's not like an entire parallel of one on ones. Like not everybody gets the one on ones. I think that's kind of a cool way
Right.
of doing it, adding a little extra to the set. All right, so the next type of numbering that we're going to go through is it's pretty much strictly Donruss Elite, the status and the aspirations parallels, and they use jersey numbering to define and dictate the player's serial number on their cards. So we only went up to about 2004 with these. They continue to make Donruss Elite in basketball, and they went on for a number of years after 2004. But some of the earlier Donruss Elites, I think in particular, are really, really cool. It actually, looking through these checklists, it actually opened my eyes to a number of Brewer cards that I think I would want. They're pretty lower numbered, like even out of 20 and for the Burnett's and a couple other ones. So I think they're really cool if you're a team collector or even a player collector. If you got guys that are in some of these Donruss Elite sets, these lower numbered ones, check them out. I think they're really neat. So basically, they use the player's jersey number in status. I can't really draw. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think status is always the jersey number, and
Jersey number.
Jazz
Yep.
aspirations is the number removed or subtracted from 100.
Correct.
Okay. So you're going to, for example, like Warren Sapp is pictured here. This isn't a status set, but with status, his jersey number is 99. So obviously he's going to have a high number, but he's the 101 in the aspiration set because 100 minus 99 leaves one. So that's the 101 card. There's no pictures of it. So we left just the opposite versions of the cards so you can see what they would look like. Just picture them in different, not an aspiration parallel, but a status, and vice versa. The Warren Moon, obviously, he's the 101 in that first football set in 99 in the status because he's number one. He's in the Seattle uniform at that time. So football started in 1999 for Donruss Elite with this numbering. With baseball, it began earlier than 2001. There's Donruss Elite in early 2000, but with this numbering, it started in 2001, and they're pictured below. I put a Derek Jeter out of 2, which is really cool. The gold status, that's a really nice card, and they're really nice die cutting too. And then I have a aspirations Pedro out of 55 there. Basketball really didn't come around with this until 2009, 10 sets. So we didn't include those. The problem with the downfall is that there's less opportunities for star players with the numbering system. So depending on the star player's jersey number, they might not have a low number card, and it continues throughout the rest of their career. So like, as you can imagine, there's a number of, when we go through some of these, there's a number of Warren Sapp 101s in the aspiration set. Warren Moon's got multiple 101s in the status set because he's number one, and Warren Sapp is 99. There's not a lot of players that are numbered 99, and generally players that are numbered 99 are your linemen and players like that. Not to say that they're not, good players. It's just that when it comes to collecting cards, they're not, your number one guys. So if we go and look at some of the key 101s from the elite and the aspirations, you got the Warren Sapp, the Warren Moon. 2000, you got another elite aspiration Sapp. You got an elite status Ben Kelly and Jerry Porter. You're going to see the trend here. 2001, you got elite aspirations, Scotty Anderson, David Terrell. elite status, Scotty Anderson, David Terrell. And you got elite aspirations, Warren Sapp and Enos Davis. Again, just it's Sapp and then like a random player, right? David Terrell was pretty big coming in the NFL though.
Yeah, and the reason he's a 101 is because it's elite typically is an earlier year release product, and so I believe I could be wrong. I believe Terrell's in his Michigan jersey, and he wore number one at Michigan, so that's why he would be the status 101.
And what some of them don't have 101. So like in 2000, in some of the later years, I think it's like
Mm-hmm.
what does it look like?
Yeah,
Football
like
doesn't
Jerry
have a
Porter's a
101.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. But you have, like again, it's guys that are confined, like a couple of Raphael Furcal cards, and Ozzie Smith, Benji Molina, Luis Castillo, no real big names. This would be almost sort of a pursuit that you would do mainly because you're looking for these like low numbered status and aspirations cards.
Yeah. I guess like this is another thing I was gonna bring up about the post playing years. In 2004 Elite Status Baseball, there's a Ozzie Smith. They had a retired set. There's an Ozzie Smith 101 in the status set because he wore number one, and there's a Ty Cobb 101 as well. They're kind of silly looking cards because it's Ty Cobb and a shiny, refractor
Mm-hmm.
like card. But
You're right.
and then with football, you got Kewan Lat in 2004 stats. You got Josh Davis, Kewan Ratliff, Reggie Williams, Robert Kent, Devar Darling, Sammy Parker. A lot of 101s, but
Star studded.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
jeez.
so that's why we didn't, spend a ton of time on those. It's the cards are great. The aesthetics, like I have a new love for Donruss Elite. I'm going to start exploring some of the players I want to collect from these sets. They're great cards. It's just that the numbering, the jersey numbering lends to kind of messing up the serial numbers, so to speak. You can't really pick what the jersey number is for players.
Right.
A couple, notable mentions. If anybody has sets that number similar to this with like jersey numbers or this, the countdown numbering and then the inverse, let us know, and we want to explore some of those. But a couple that we wanted to mention was in 2000 Fleer Focus. They got really cool inserts. They have their touchdown edition inserts, and what they do is they number the cards based on how many touchdowns the players had during that year. And I guess Joey Galloway had one touchdown in 2000. I think he got hurt or something, but he was in a good hands insert. And then the touchdown edition parallel, it's a parallel of the insert. It was a 101. So he was the only
Mm-hmm.
101 from that set, but it's a unique way to number 101s where you do it based on how many touchdowns they had in that season. So, and 2001 Fleer Focus numbers, Patrick Jeffers had a 101, and then Doug Chapman had a 101. No, a couple
Yeah,
years.
I don't know where they got the Jeff. I don't know how those were computed. Because Jeffers in 2001 had zero touchdowns, didn't play the 2000 season, so I'm not sure where they came up with that. But yeah, if you know of any other, like I guess statistics related one of ones or one of ones unrelated to jersey number, let us know because these are sort of kind of fit with the theme of like off the beaten path. One of ones that we were trying to focus on here.
Yeah, the 98, another one I mentioned, the 98 Upper Deck Black Diamond Rookie Edition. Warren Moon is a 101. So he had, I believe that's a jersey numbered set as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah,
another set to explore if you're looking for, jersey numbers, things like that. So,
good
all right.
stuff, man. All right. Well, that concludes that episode of looking at those one of ones. Hope you guys like that. It was something a little different. We're still going to keep doing different sets with one of ones, probably back to more mainstream stuff, just because there's only so much you can talk about with these kind of oddball one of ones. But Brian, any final thoughts before we head out for the week?
No, there's no, it's going to be weird. There's no football.
Yeah, it is weird.
I don't know what our recording situation will be like next week. I'm going to be probably going to be having a baby. So, Well, I'm not gonna be. I'm
Drops
not.
the news.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have a baby, but yeah, Jen's gonna have our second and last kid.
Well, well, congratulations, man.
Yeah,
I know you had mentioned that before, but I did not realize that the date was fast approaching. So you're on your last days of a parent of one.
yeah, it's gonna be something new, adding another human into the household with you. You
Yeah.
know, so our recording might be. We'll see how
Yeah,
it
we may
goes.
have to get some guest hosts here and there, or do some one-on-one collector combos. But
Just for next week, at least. Just for next
yeah,
week. I don't know when.
we'll work around it. We'll work around it. But all right, guys, hope you enjoyed that episode. Please feel free to reach out on Instagram. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, or anywhere you find your podcasts, and we'll catch you next week.